Over the last 15 years, Aberdeen has been considered the oil and gas capital of Europe due to its large ability for expansion and local expertise in the field. Given the recent shift in the industry towards decommissioning, we in this documentary will be exploring Aberdeen's potential as an international centre of excellence for decommissioning both intellectually and practically. A vastly increasing sector in the oil and gas industry, decommissioning is a natural part of the life cycle of an oil rig, with great potential and variable risks. If Aberdeen becomes a centre of excellence in decommissioning, it uniquely positions the city and the UK to become global leaders and provide opportunities for companies across the supply chain to attract projects globally and bring revenue into the UK. We spoke to several industry professionals to get their opinion and insights on the topic. We started by asking them to describe in detail what the process of decommissioning involves.
So decommissioning is really the deconstruction of the oil and gas industry, specifically the subsea as well as the installations themselves. So long-term decommissioning is the end of oil and gas exploration and production in the North Sea.
There's obviously the physical structures that are in the North Sea just now that have to be removed safely with minimal environmental impact. Now that can in some cases be leaving the infrastructure at sea, or in many cases removing it from the North Sea, taking it back on shore, so as much of the material as possible can be reused.
Decommissioning is more about deconstructing, so dismantling topsides and jackets that have been loaded onto the quayside, dismantling pipeline infrastructure, things like that are very, very complicated, and the facilities to do that need to be licensed to do the deconstruction and the waste management.
Our next goal was to gain insight into how exactly the process takes place. To explore this, we had the great opportunity to visit the first of its kind, DS6000 drilling simulator, created in partnership with KCA Deutag, located in the Sir Ian Wood building in Robert Gordon University. We spoke to Professor Phil Hazard, who agreed to demonstrate steps of the process to us.
I look after all the drilling and wells activity here at Robert Gordon University. This is our decommissioning simulator. It was installed to support the UK decommissioning industry, and we've got a number of tools installed to actually decommission a well. The external industry use us, and the students actually use us for coming in and doing decommissioning wells activity. Now in this scenario here we have casing. Unfortunately the casing parted and we have to run the tool now deeper into the casing to actually latch onto it and try and grip the casing and remove the casing out. I'll give you a quick demonstration. We're actually coming down nice and easy. We know the depth where the casing should be. We now seem to have a positive indication that we're inside that casing. We'll actually function the tool. And the thing is we're great that we've got graphics here that we can actually let the students and the people involved in decommissioning actually see how the tool is functioning downhole. Now we'll try and come up and see if we'll actually grip the casing. We were checking our weights. And we can now start to remove the casing. And that is just one of the exercises that we have here. We have casing cutting, we have milling, casing pooling, and we also have a fishing module built into the decommissioning simulator itself. As I say, the oil and gas companies are now starting to access it. They're running through some contingency plans, and they're bringing in the crews to go through all the scenarios and the what ifs and make sure that they're all fully aware of the system and how they can actually decommission a well safely.
To achieve a wider perspective when targeting our question, we examined Aberdeen's potential as a hub for decommissioning by comparing it with other locations.
So Aberdeen traditionally has been a fishing port, and then it evolved in the 1970s to become a support base for the upstream offshore oil and gas industry. And predominantly nowadays, what it has is a fleet of platform support vessels, logistical vessels, supporting the platforms that are in the North Sea, the central, the southern, the northern North Sea. So the port is really geared up more for that. The capacity of Aberdeen as a harbour won't be able to cope as a standalone. So my vision would be that decommissioning would be shared across a number of different Scottish ports. And ideally, it will be horses for courses. It will depend on the water depth of the port in comparison to the offshore installations that need to be decommissioned. So, for example, a very heavy structure will require a vessel that has a large draft, in other words, the depth of the vessel. And there are certain ports that can take these vessels and some can't. So it's very much horses for courses.
Dundee has a number of natural advantages that would help it become a decommissioning hub. It has the land area. It's a very large port. You don't actually realise that if you go past on the train or you drive past. But it's also a very long port. So it's built on the river. It's not the traditional U shape that a harbour would traditionally be for sheltered waters. The sheltered waters is actually by the estuary. So it not only has a very, very long quayside, it has very sheltered water.
If we look at projected activity over the next 10, 15 years, there's roughly about 140 platforms to be decommissioned. So they can't all go to the one area. So it makes sense that it's spread across a number of different ports, and that has benefits for the local economies as well.
There's in excess of 500 facilities out there. There's 40 years of decommissioning ahead of us, along with the sort of the optimization of late life production. There's a lot of work out there to do, and I think it will be shared and optimized across the piece, because Dundee could fill up quite quickly, Lerwick could fill up quite quickly, so therefore where do some of the smaller items come in? So I think there will be a balance, and there will be people will have choices to where they bring the items.
I think there's a concept of hubs as opposed to fragmented project approaches. I think the industry, even on an individual decommissioning project, its interface with the supply chain is very fragmented because largely the procurement processes. They will look at a discrete scope of work and they'll contract for that separately. And then they'll look at a different discrete scope of work. I think they should come to the marketplace, the operators that is, with a larger problem and say, how would you help me solve this problem? And the idea is to build decommissioning hubs that have continuity of work throughput, like a manufacturing facility that will drive efficiency, and that efficiency will drive down the cost. So I think the question of, is a hub a good idea, is something worth investigating. I personally believe it is, because I think the hub concept is capable of being exported, and that meets the government's goal of Vision 2035.
Aberdeen is recognised as a centre in its own right for the oil and gas industry. So I think it will be an easy step to make into the decommissioning phase of the offshore life. As you say, you have the education structure that's starting to look at disciplined courses around about decommissioning. There's a lot of expertise within the manpower within Aberdeen that's either providing input to those courses. The universities have come out to industry to make sure that they get a balance and make those courses the right credibility in industry, making sure they have the right structure and the right input to allow those courses to be credible in the marketplace, to allow individuals to come and take those courses and get employment.
Aberdeen is huge in terms of expertise and companies being here, the supply chain and the oil companies themselves, the government offices are here, so it's a natural fit, right?
Well, I think that the universities should work together, because I think that's the key area for the expertise is academia. I think University of Aberdeen, Robert Gordon's and the Dundee universities, they could work together. They need input from the operators, because the operators are the people that know the assets the best, they know the wells the best by far. So that data and that knowledge and experience is an absolute must, as a requirement. But the actual integration of that could be done in Dundee or Aberdeen or both.
After obtaining different perspectives from industry professionals and educational experts in the field, we have concluded that the answer is both yes and no. Aberdeen is unlikely to become a physical centre of excellence due to the size and logistical restrictions, and in reality none of the existing hubs can handle all of the process. But being awarded the intellectual hub due to the knowledge and facilities present across both universities and expertise from oil and gas giants located in Aberdeen, presented as the intellectual centre of excellence for decommissioning both domestically and abroad.